to be the last Future-Proof Public Transport Subcommittee meeting. Phil, I understand you're going to do the opening karakia, please.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. Whakataka taho ki te uru, whakataka taho ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, ehi aki ana te atakura, hei tio, hei huka, hei ho hu, tihe mauri ora.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the next item, apologies. Oh, no, that's all right. We'll go take apologies. And we have Carolyn for absence, and then we've got Chair Pamela, Deputy Mayor Angela, and Deputy Mayor Liz Stolwick. They're all for either absence or early departure on council business.
Yes, I just wanted to highlight, we're leaving around 10:15 or so, but a special occasion, the hydro dam at Lake Karapiro, the Mercury Hydro Dam, is opening after 3 years. It's a momentous thing for us. So I'll be there for the celebration. Yeah. Thanks.
Are there any other apologies? Okay, I'll move receipt of those. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Angela. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. We've got confirmation of the agenda. I'm happy to move confirmation of the agenda as is set out in the circulated document. Okay. Mayor Adrian, I'll put that. Against, carried. Are there any disclosures of interest in respect of matters on today's agenda? There are not. Thank you. We'll move to item 5, the health and safety statement. I'll take that as read. Anything to add, Brooke? Okay, thank you. And we'll move to item 6, the confirmation of minutes. So 6.1 was the future-proof public transport meeting minutes of 16 May. Can I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Okay. Angela, seconder for that. Okay. Maxine, are there any matters in terms of any corrections to those minutes? Okay, there are not. So it's been moved and seconded. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And then item 6.2 is just receiving the minutes of the Regional Transport Committee meeting 9 June. I'm happy to move receipt of that. I can have a seconder for that. That's Jennifer. Any discussion on those? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. So we'll now move to item 7.1, which is the Director's Report. Before I ask Phil to present that, I'll move to Mayor Adrian, who's going to talk about the National Rail Safety Week, which he has participated in. Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you, Bill, and thanks for the opportunity to speak about it. So, this week is National Rail Safety Week, and I've put a couple of pamphlets out with you. There's a rural-focused one and an urban-focused one, but I was invited to speak as a guest speaker at the launch that Winston Peters hosted in the Grand Room in Parliament on Monday. A heap of Kiwi Rail people there, executive, and obviously Megan Drayton from the TrackSafe Foundation, which is a key part of this. And so, as you see on the pamphlets, it's stay off, stay safe, tracks are for trains. And obviously obviously I was invited because of our tragedy that we had in Matamata, and I was happy to report that, we've been working with Kiwi Rail and NZTA to increase the safety in our town. Obviously, I described how our town is absolutely bisected by a railway line and a highway, and just the actions that we've taken and my lobbying for a new crossing and pedestrian crossing at the southern end of town. But yeah, real privilege to be a part of it, and yeah, and it's just such an important part. And I probably should highlight just in this future-proof area, while Hamilton probably doesn't focus because your railway lines are relatively secure, Waipa, Waikato and Matamatapiako have railway lines where Kiwi Rail do have issues with people trespassing on the lines. And a lot of us don't know that it's actually a trespassable offence, and it is actually illegal. In Matamata especially, we've been crossing lines for generations. I haven't been because I'm a rural person, but the people in town, it's the shortcut. And that's what they say, 45% of people do cross illegally because it is the shortcut. Yeah, that's a nationwide statistic that they've released. So yeah, no, it's really special. And of course, Winston Minister Honourable Right Honourable Minister Peters, the Minister of Rail, obviously spoke, and yeah, caught up with Angus Hodson, which many of you will know, who was the one of the directors in here with the Regional Transport Committee, because he was seconded to work under Winston. So caught up with him as well. So yeah, real positive event.
Okay, thanks,
Thank
Mayor
you.
Adrian. Any questions of Adrian in terms of that? Don't appear to be. Thanks very much. Phil, if you'd like to, we'll take your report as read, but you can, I think if we can take it in sections and then we'll work our way through.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I think Brian and Nigel are coming up to present those sections. And I think that's a good idea to take each section as read, and then happy to discuss anything that you'd like.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, committee members. And thanks for the introduction there too, Phil. As has just been arranged, there are a few things there on the Director's report, and we'll go through item by item. One of the opening item that we've got to talk about is the achievements of this committee over the last triennium, which have been significant. I highlighted some of the functional sort of things that are there, and including 10 meetings of this committee over the triennium, 3 in 23, 4 in 24, and another 3 this year. Exclusive of this current agenda, there had been 72 reports and 1,200 pages read. You can add another 8 reports and another 212 pages to the total. So it's a significant amount of work that this committee gets through. And when you think about the amount of information that you have to receive and synthesize and make decisions on, it's very significant. As well as obviously working through these committee meetings, this committee has seen the oversight and implementation of the 22 Regional Public Transport Plan, oversight and development of the Metro Spatial Plan Public Transport Program, and oversight and implementation of the Public Transport Plan Business Improvement Review, all significant pieces of work. Adding to this has been, again, oversight and implementation of the Te Huia passenger rail service, which sat under the mandate of this committee. I won't go into the specifics there, but again, significant reports have been received throughout this term, and just to note that the brackets at the end of each of those represent month and year as opposed to month and day, so it wasn't just a very busy year this year, it's been sustained over a long period of time. Additional to that, we've seen the launch of the Meteor service, a very, very successful introduction there, as well as 2 rounds of support for introducing a new regional rating model for public transport, which we have now landed. So again, thanks to the support and advocacy from this committee. Not only have services been introduced, hard decisions have been made at this committee, including the discontinuation of the Airport Flex service. So again, the input that this committee has really does refine at a detailed level how best to help support and deliver services on our network. And these difficult decisions start here too. We've seen redevelopment of services across the region, including in Waipa, and with the introduction of double-decker buses and also their conversion to electric, which has been excellent. And for the first time in 3 years, we saw a transport fare increase introduced in June 24. So again, not an easy decision, but one that's been successfully implemented across the network. Also enhancements across the Eastern Connector services and recent reports that have also continued to help develop and refine our public transport networks, including the Metro Spatial Plan Public Transport Pathways Report and the Hamilton Network Review. And then just noting that the second round of transport rating landed this year. So alongside all of that, you've attended workshops, there's been numerous submissions, advocacy. It's been a significant period of change, and I think it's probably just an opportunity through yourself, Chair, to reflect on the great work of this committee, and certainly staff have appreciated the support from this level. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments in terms of this section of the report? Angela.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Probably just a big thank you to Phil and his team for all the amazing work getting us all ready for these meetings that we have had, and just looking back on that list of achievements is quite significant. So yeah, thank you to Phil and your team.
Sarah.
Similarly, I just wanted to say thank you very much for all of the work that's gone into all of these different decisions this term, and informing this committee and bringing these reports to us and then implementing it, which is the important part. So thank you very much to all of the team. Thanks.
Okay. And it is, it's not till you actually see the long list in terms of matters that have come before the committee and the associated reporting going with that. I'm just going to save my comments to the end of the meeting in terms of the work of the committee. There's nothing further. Given there's 5 items or sections related to bus contracts, renewals, etc. We can take, if you can go through that bundle of 5, and then I'll open it up for questions or comments.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair. Yes, as the Chair mentioned, the next few sections all relate to the bus contract renewals work programme. So we can probably go over relatively quickly at a high level what those look like. The first of which has been reported on here is public engagement on our network reviews. So recently, and by recently I mean earlier in June and July, public consultation was undertaken on short, medium and long-term bus networks across various areas of our region, which included Hamilton, Waikato, Maramato-Piako, Hauraki and Thames Coromandel. So as mentioned, it was out for approximately 3 weeks for consultation. It was probably one of our more successful engagements. We were really pleased with the results that were achieved. We connected with communities across the region, and for this we received 1,218 responses. Not surprisingly, the majority of them were in Hamilton with 576, but following not too closely behind, Thames Coromandel represented very significantly in 348. And then further, Hauraki, that was Thames Coromandel and Hauraki 348, 178 for Raglan, 147 for Maramato-Piako and 100 for North Waikato. So that represented an excellent range of feedback. So we are still completing the analysis of that work, and then we'll make sure that we report back on that one. The next part of the renewals process is Section 17A. This is a functional assessment to make sure that we are delivering public transport services appropriately under Section 17A of the Local Government Act 2002. So an independent piece of work has been commissioned to undertake that review. The initial workshops have already been completed to do that, and we expect the outcomes of that to be delivered by the end of this month. So that will help inform the structure of the tendering documentation for the bus contract renewals process. The next part of the BCR program includes zero emission buses. So we've been having a look at what is required to support transition to a zero emission bus network, including commissioning of the zero emission bus technical implementation plan. I've written here that the work was in the final stages of completion. We received the document yesterday, so we'll make sure that we undertake the analysis of that, and that will then inform the zero emission bus roadmap that goes out of that to help guide where we are taking that as a transition of the fleet. So it's probably those three, Chair, that relate to the bus contract renewals program. So happy to take questions on that.
Okay, any questions or comments on those three matters? No?
That's okay.
Carry to the next
Um,
couple.
The next item is just an update to make folks aware that we've been engaging with our operators across the region in response to customer inquiries to support disabled access, and particularly to just make sure that that disability awareness is embedded across all operators across the fleet. So in response to customer feedback, Waikato Regional Council has been working with our operators and just making sure that we continue to provide the most inclusive service that we can across the region. So that's probably that matter, but Phil, anything further?
Phil.
Just to add to that, the final section of that, so para 24 is a request that we are very keen to investigate any incidents that do not achieve the standards that we expect, and we've listed there what we really need in order to investigate those events if they occur. So if that's the message you take away from that section, please encourage people to contact us every time they see this not being achieved, and we will investigate.
Nothing further. Move on, please.
The next section is on the public transport fares review that we are undertaking at the moment. So we're looking at undertaking a comprehensive review of our fares and concessions, and that's to support development of the next regional public transport plan, as well as supporting the transition to the national ticketing solution. And there's a little bit more of the national ticketing solution update in a subsequent section. But we must make sure that these fares and concessions are explicitly outlined in regional public transport plans. So as we know, there's been interest from government to raise the user share of the funding for public transport, and that was confirmed in the GPS, as well as recently confirmed private share targets. So what we'll do through the assessment is review the current fare structure, and it will model a range of future options. One of those is, one of the requirements is to simplify the fare structure as a key focus. Through this process, it will involve elected member engagement. So there will be elected member workshops, and I'm conscious that obviously this is the last meeting of this triennium, but we'll continue to do this into the next triennium. So there will be elected member workshops as well as committee meetings to confirm the preferred option. So there will be elected member engagement. We're looking for endorsement in the middle of next year, and that's to support the development of the 27 RPTP. So we leave it there, Chair.
Okay, I've got Angela then Liz.
Cool. Thank you, Nigel. Just question around the 2 elected member workshops. Who were you going to pitch those workshops at?
So to be determined, and I think once we've got the structure determined for next year, but we'll probably have to engage, and there may be more workshops than that, depending on the form and function of what this may evolve into. At this level is useful, Regional Transport Committee, but equally Waikato Regional Council is too.
Excellent, thank you.
Liz.
Look, Mr. Chair, this question could be related to something a bit later on, but it's just around the fares. And I noticed in the graphs that are coming up that Waikato fares are kind of the highest outside of the main centres. So I'm not too sure where best to pitch that question, but kind of I was interested in your thoughts around that and whether we need to consider something in that space, that's all.
And happy to take it now, given that you will be departing very soon.
Would you like me to respond, or would
Yes,
you like
please.
to take that one,
Yeah.
Phil? So part of the fare review will be affordability, and I think one of the key things that we are noting through here is there is a very fine balance about finding affordability how that impacts on patronage as well as impacting on private share targets that we're looking for. So I expect that will be reviewed as part of the modelling, and so affordability and its impact on demand thereafter. So I don't have necessarily like a knowledge about what that might look like, but it will definitely form part of that review.
Maxine.
Thank you, Nigel. You talked about the meeting that you're proposing to hold. And it's a good idea that that's formed up in the next triennium. But there's a good deal of interest from Hamilton City Council elected members. And I wondered whether there would be some real value in being able to do that as a joint presentation with the Regional Council. It also helps to strengthen relationships across both of those councils. You can think about how that might.
Oh, I can definitely take that under consideration, and I certainly know at the senior level there's a lot of good engagement across staff. So yeah, we can look at how we ensure that people with interests in that space are consulted most appropriately. Thank you.
Eugene.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report. Just 47, the 17A review, and then you got the public transport fares review. The 17A reviews are normally very thorough process, and often they'll dive into touch on financials, funding, etc. And suppose with that would have to probably touch on fare recovery. So would those sort of two, I just don't, we're not doubling up in that space, are we?
No, we're not doubling up in that space. So the 17A review, as I'm aware, is specifically about making sure that we're delivering services in the most optimal way. Yeah, and the fare review, the structure review, will make sure that we're setting our structures appropriately to suit the needs of our region as well as meeting government expectations.
Thanks.
Chair, I might also add to that. So the Section 17A review, as you point out, is a really comprehensive review, and the reviewers have gone into an enormous amount of detail around how Waikato Regional Council runs its public transport or bus services. And so a lot of stuff will fall out of that. It's not doubling up, I don't believe, on the work that we're doing, but it is actually aligned with, and it feeds into that, I think, is the message from me.
Any other questions or comments at this point? No? Move on to NZTA consultation on procurement procedures.
Oh, thank you. So yes, we've been advised, well, we received early advice and it has subsequently come out that NZTA has released a draft of the Public Transport Procurement Procedures Manual, which now closes on the 5th of September. So it is currently open, and just a note there that staff are reviewing this and will prepare a submission on behalf of Waikato Regional Council. And so probably just noting that the what is now the PT-PPM sets out the requirements and guidance for public transport authorities when developing procurement strategies for public transport activities. And those strategies form the basis for obtaining procurement approvals for NZTA. So again, tied up with the work that's happening in the bus contract renewals process, as well as development of our procurement strategy. So we'll make sure that we provide input into that.
Any questions or comments on that? Angela.
Yeah, thank you. Just for a bit of clarity, when you say public transport activities, is that all encompassing everything we do in sort of PT space? And then also staff will prepare a submission. Will there be any oversight from elected members on that submission?
Well, I have just worked with my colleague this morning to update where that's got. So some of the technical work has already gone into the background of that now. I expect outside of the process, we can probably circulate it via the previous channels for input into that. My understanding is it's more related to the procedures required and the content of procurement strategies and how they're developed. So fairly
operational.
More operational at that stage, but not to say that we can't circulate it for review and input ahead of submission.
If there's nothing further, we'll move to the National Ticketing Solution Program.
Thank you. So the National Ticketing Solution Program, often just abbreviated NTS, is progressing well. So Waikato Regional Council is supporting this process with the intent to replace the B card and align it with the new national system called Motu Move. So that's a system that will allow customers to pay for public transport using contactless payments. So your credit or your debit cards, mobile wallets, Motu Move cards, and pre-purchased tickets. So it's designed to make a nationally consistent, modern and accessible transport payment experience, as noted in some of the content there. What was noted earlier in the fares review part was that there is a review of concessions and what that looks like nationally. So we're making sure that we are aligned in those spaces and that whatever comes out is aligned with national best practice. So again, we support that move towards national consistency in concessions, and especially to make sure that we're providing the best customer experience that we can. So that's well underway. We're continuing with that work. Again, it will feed into the RPTP in mid-26, and we should have decisions well before that time. So I'm, again, just happy to open that to the floor at this stage, Chair.
Angela.
Thank you. Yeah, just on the topic of concessions, I've had a few members of the public contact me around whether our disability concession is still continuing once we move to Motu Move. So yeah, just with the national alignment of concessions, and understand there are different concessions across the country, will there be, so staff are fighting hard to retain our concessions, is there any room for expansion of our disability concession to other areas of New Zealand, or how could we, encourage other regions to, take up what we are doing here with, especially with the +1, which was hard fought for last triennium. How could we advance that concession and that national conversation?
Oh, looks like you're poised.
So the first point I'd make is that the responses on this collectively across all regional councils are that concessions are not the reason for delay to the installation or the rollout of national ticketing. Yeah. That there's a whole range of other reasons that things are the way they are. The matrix that has been created for the next round of governance group conversations within national ticketing are focused on the standardisation of about 4 key areas. It's the definition of a child, the rules around Super Gold, the role of the Community Connect system, and then I think it's under 5's child, and then child between either 5 and 16 or 5 and 18. So trying to get consistency in those areas. All of that work acknowledges that each region then has its own process separate to that. And for us, that's around accessibility, but in other parts of the country, it's around tertiary. And there are a range of different decisions that regions have made over the years. All of those are still available, and as the conversations continue, are still being advocated for very strongly, that there needs to be the opportunity for regions to have their own concession system as well. There are actually, there is another region that's similar to us, and I can't remember exactly which one it is, around the accessibility concession, but it's not widespread in the way that we have it. We're a leader nationally in that space. And absolutely through all of our relationships with other regions, we advocate for that to be considered by others as we go. So we definitely have been doing that, and we'll continue to do that.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on that? Oh, Anthony.
Yep. Yeah, just following on from the comments that we get from people we support, generally is that obviously this nationally recognised ticketing system can't come quick enough, because we get comments on a daily basis that people can use their B card to get a bus to the railway station. They can get free transport to here, to Auckland, and then they're stuffed because the B car doesn't work. Now that's, to us may not be a major problem, but somebody who's neurodiverse or ADHD problems, that's a major anxiety issue for them. So the sooner we can get a nationally recognised single card system, the better. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nigel, would you like to finish off? And were there any comments you want to make, particularly in respect of the NZTA quarterly report, which is an appendix to the report?
It is. Oh, Phil, are you happy to take that one?
Phil.
Well, we put this on really late in the piece because this information had just been released by the agency, and it's almost the first time we've seen some really interesting relative data between our region and other parts of the country. I don't know if Susan wants to talk about that, but we thought there would be value in sharing it with you because it does provide insight into our boardings, our fares, our performance against others, and it's a direction that the agency's PT team is going in to try and create consistency around reporting and relativity for us all as a sector. As has already been mentioned, there's the opportunity then to think about fares and our average fare, which nobody actually pays, but the average fare in the context of other regions' average fares. And yeah, you can see how probably one of the ones I would pick out is on page 40 of the agenda, the table there, which shows the share of boardings nationally compared to the share of revenue nationally. And that's quite an interesting one. So that tells you relatively where the patronage is across the country and also where the revenue is across the country. So we're at 2.7 and 2.1, which is interesting, but others are in a very different space. So that the reason was just to bring that to the committee's attention and consider what it means for us.
Liz.
Look, thank you for that, Phil. Just a quick question around, I was on page 33, the June numbers, the drop, the considerable drop, is that correct, do you think? Is that drop real, or is it just that data hasn't quite managed to find its way into the graph? I was just interested to see why we were back down to 2023 levels, that's all. 22, 23 levels.
Good question. I don't have the answer.
Yeah, that's all right. It was just an observation looking at the graph thinking, gosh, something's gone horribly wrong there. And a second question too, that's right, through you, Mr. Chair. This is on page 43, the punctuality and reliability, but why the high percentage of cancellations for Waikato? Seemed like an interesting trend. Well, I hope it's not a trend actually, but it's just an interesting observation.
If there's somebody from the ops team on the call, that was a question I asked as well. I didn't get given an answer, but Judy's available. We do stand out on that factor. I think it may be connected to its bus. We'll have an answer for you by the end of the meeting.
I've got Jen online.
Thank you. Yeah, I had the same question as Liz, but that sounds great. In regards to the point you made, Phil, about page 40 with the share of boardings, share of revenue, for regional council, it would be really interesting to see that alongside another column of, the amount of investment per capita, which is a conversation we had when we were doing the public transport rating workshops. Just to see the comparative level of investment and then obviously hear these outcomes so that we can see where we rank in that regard. So maybe just something for the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Angela.
Yeah, just to add to that as well, I think also population of the region would be really interesting data as well as our region is massive in terms of, geographical kilometres. So yeah, it'd be good to have that data added too.
Yeah, good point. Thanks, Angela, for adding that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Maxine.
Recognise that it is a very new report from Waka Kotahi with lots and lots of really useful information. What would be helpful for me would be to have some kind of commentary about our local performance to sit alongside of it that will answer a lot of these questions and help us to really be able to understand what these numbers mean for us and what opportunities we have to act on or improve other things. So just for noting in future. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nothing else. Nigel, were you wanting to make some final comments? Yeah, right, okay. Might have an answer on the. Vince, can you respond to the question around cancellations?
We're on the NZTA dashboard report, Vince, that shows the 6% number for Waikato in terms of performance of public transport on page 43 of the agenda.
Well, we'll come back in a moment. We might as well deal with the, give them a wee bit of space. If I can have a mover and seconder then of the director's report. Thanks, Liz. If I can have a second for that, Maxine. There's nothing further. I'll put that recommendation to receive the report. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And we'll come back to that response in a moment. We'll move on to item 7.2, which commences on page 45 of the agenda. And Nigel, you're fronting this one also, are you?
I am, Chair. Thank you.
Over to you.
Thank you, sir. What we have before you here is a request to vary our regional public transport plan. Now, probably two parts to this. It's a continuation of the work of the bus contract renewals process. So one of the functional elements of that is a requirement to review the public transport units. And so a unit, according to the background here, is one of the ways in which we take a strategic approach for how we organise and procure public transport contracted services. So it's a requirement under the Land Transport Management Act, and as part of the process as we are going through bus contract renewals, it's timely for us to have a look at, are we doing this in the right way? So a piece of work has been undertaken and looked at according to several requirements for allocating those services into units. And again, this is an NZTA requirement. So we've reviewed network effectiveness, efficiency, and market sustainability. So that's to make sure that we are promoting good competition for public transport across the region. So this has, it's looking at, it's taken into account parallel work that has occurred. So we've undertaken some network reviews and service network reviews in both the Hamilton urban network and regional services. And we heard about that a little bit earlier. And that work was reported back to the 16th of May meeting of this committee, and again to the Regional Transport Committee. So I won't rehash that. I'm conscious you've been through parts of that. But what we didn't do as part of the unit structure review was have a look at Waipa, South Waikato and Taupo, as they've relatively recently been completed, and their contracts aren't due to expire until 2031 and 2032. So the current unit structure is contained as an appendix in here, and what we've done is we've reviewed each of those other areas and assessed them for viability. And so a range of options were considered for each one. And as you work through this report, you'll see that they're actually given in more detail under the options assessment, and the Appendix 2 to this is actually just the same tables made a little bit more legible than the ones that are contained through the body of the report. But what we've done is we've reviewed each of the primary regional areas. So the first one that we'd looked at was the Hamilton Urban Network, and that was units 1 and 2. So we did a combined assessment of that, and we evaluated them on a range of different options. And again, we had 6 options, and then assessed them for how palatable they were to the market, what level of competitiveness that provided, their operational efficiency, their provision for zero emission buses, longevity and sustainability into the future, the customer experience, operational flexibility, and whether or not that kind of combination had any fatal flaws, which would obviously eliminate some immediately, and then pros and cons were assessed. So for Hamilton, 6 options were proposed. The one that was recommended and has been reflected in this report is option 3, which is 3 units for the Hamilton area, which includes high frequency and coverage. High frequency, coverage, and then a flex or a targeted services one. The next area that was evaluated was North Waikato, and so that combined a review of units 3 and 3A. And so again, various options were considered for that, including retaining the status quo as 2 units, combining them into 1, or creating additional units for that. So what was preferred here was the second option that we evaluated, which was 1 combined unit. And this was considered to provide, to consolidate those services and deliver them in a combined way to provide greater flexibility, better fleet management, and support future growth. The East Waikato Unit 4 in the current RPTP was evaluated, again against a variety of options, and the one that came out on top for that was what we deem here option 2, to have 2 units, so a regional connector as well as future town circulars. And so again, what that was designed to do was increase connectivity from our townships, Morrinsville and Matamata through into Hamilton, but also acknowledge that there is a requirement to service communities within those townships too. The West Waikato was evaluated as Unit 5, and the primary option that came out of that was, again, having 2 units, having a Raglan regional connector, much as we do now, as well as a local circular within the Raglan township. And then finally is, sorry, there's 2 more. The Thames Hauraki services were evaluated. And so again, the preferred option that came out of this was to look at having a Thames connector, so continuing very much along the lines of the service we've got, as well as an expanded network that serves the Hauraki district and communities there. And then again, just noting that the work for Waipa, South Waikato and Taupo don't necessarily need to be reviewed in the same way, but having a new Unit 8 created for Tikawiti and Otrahonga, which is currently under Unit 7, but due to some of the geographic boundaries, it was proposed that it fits better within its own unit. And so additional to that is having a reserve unit created to support community transport, and this committee will be familiar with the increased support that Waikato Regional Council has given for community transport, but just making sure that as conversations occur nationally, we've got the ability to incorporate that into a public transport offering. So that's a high-level assessment of where we've got to. There is a table 6 in the body of the report, represents the proposed unit structure. And so the specific request is that that table is then amended to the Appendix A of the Regional Public Transport Plan. So it's not proposing to take anything out of the Regional Public Transport Plan, merely it's to include this table as an indication about where or how future PT services will be contracted, as that's the requirement that we have under the LTMA, and to have that included in an RPTP. So ultimately, there is a lot of reading there, but what we've done is we've evaluated what we've got, made sure that it's regionally appropriate, and then basically proposed a system to ensure that we can contract those services in the right way as we go out for the tendering later on. So I'm happy to leave that there, Chair, and conscious that there might be questions from folks.
Thanks, Nigel. I'll open it up for comments or questions. Jen, you're online.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Nigel. A question I had was, I know from previous conversations, there's a lot of interest in interregional bus as well, or and potentially, increasing interregional rail in future in other directions. Does this allow for that? Say, for example, if we were to have Bay of Plenty and Auckland more represented on our Regional Transport Committee next triennium, does this kind of fit that could still have the right unit structure to explore what comes out of that?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, that's a very good question. And one of the areas that what we've done to allow us to have the greatest flexibility for future options and prevent having to go through additional variations is to revise the reserved units that we've got. We've already got a few reserved units in the operative public transport plan, but what you'll note is that units 12 through 24 in this report are ones that we're actually not actively contracting at the moment, but can potentially go out for and do so in the future as we revise what is necessary. And included in there are a range of interregional trial services. So for any new service, we'd have to go through the process of testing it via trial anyway. And so then what we've done is we've made provision. And so, for example, you mentioned the Bay of Plenty, the reserved unit number 22 is a Waikato Bay of Plenty trial. So that would enable us to test and validate viability of services through that process, and should be expected to be able to contract, provided we've got funding to do so.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions, comments? Liz?
Happy to move.
Okay, thank you. If I can have a seconder. Thanks, Eugene. Now, on screen are two recommendations. In the hard copy or the agenda, it had a third, which was superfluous because it talked about the resolutions in the report being made public. But this is public, so there's no need, hence the difference. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Nothing further. I'll put those recommendations. All those please in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Now you are departing, Liz, so I'll welcome Roger to the table as your alternate. Okay, so we're moving to item 7.3, implementing the Rototuna high frequency. Now, I'm just going to do something a wee bit different in respect of this item. We have discussed this matter before. To assist me in terms of actually managing through the discussion on this, I'm going to look for a mover and seconder for the recommendation. So that's on the table. It's not stopping any of the discussion, and then we'll work through the report, and then where we end up at the end, we can then consider the recommendations or if there's any changes to those. So Angela, you moving that?
Yeah, I'll move that recommendation.
Okay, seconded by Eugene. So it's on the table, moved and seconded, and I will now ask who's presenting this, Catherine and Phil. Catherine, over to you.
Hi, good morning, committee and chair. I just, first of all, Phil Hazeldene's here sitting next to me just to recognise that this was a joint paper written by ourselves and HCC, but I acknowledge that his name isn't written as author on the top, so I just didn't want to say that.
I'm sure he'll cope.
Yes, indeed. So I will take the report as read, but essentially this paper was really to recognise or outline really the rationale for the 2028 delivery of the Rototuna high frequent service, really as opposed to 2027, really for two main reasons, one being the funding aspect of it, as well as the strategic alignment to time with the bus renewal contract program and with the rest of the network changes within Hamilton. The recommended timeline has really allows for us to have a more integrated network and delivery of the network changes for Hamilton in 2028, and as well as being more financially secure and responsible in the sense of the next funding round. So I will open the floor to questions.
Okay, so open it up. Questions, comments in terms of this report? Okay. Okay. Oh, nothing online.
So thank you for the report and for bringing this item to the table. Yeah, and I look forward to the implementation in 2028. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. One can't say you haven't been on the case.
Pain.
Okay. Angela.
Oh, is Jenna online? Oh, is Jennifer online?
Oh, sorry. Jen.
Thank you. I was keen to understand what we're looking at in regards to when in 2028. Is it more the start or the end of the year, that kind of thing?
So my understanding is that the current contract expires in September 2028, and so the new contract will launch September 2028. So Q3. That makes sense.
Thank you.
Angela.
Yeah, thank you. As the mover, I know that everyone around the table was disappointed that it has to be 2028. If, you know, NLTF had landed differently, we wouldn't be in this position. So, yeah, just appreciate the advocacy around the table. However, funding just isn't our friend this triennium and this round. So I'm really hopeful that, yeah, next time round we get a bit more PT investment. Yeah, thank you.
Anything else? Any other comments? And certainly as chair, I've heard that disappointment loud and clear. But at the end of the day, it is what it is in terms of the lack of funding. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. And I've got Angela and Eugene have moved and seconded. If there's nothing further, I'll put those two recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried.
Yep.
So that is probably timely to break for morning tea for 15 minutes and we'll reconvene. And what is the time? At 20 to 11. Thank you.